the Brexit Party became obviously the Reform Party. Um, how how did they find their identity, or how what has the process been to find the identity in a post Brexit era? Because really, the Brexit Party was a single issue. Really, that was, I mean, there was a little more to it, but really, it was focused on Brexit. So, how has the process been of defining what a third party that could credibly be in government? What's that process been like, and who are you appealing to?
Well, interestingly, when the Brexit Party first morphed into Reform, I didn't join Reform. I was politically homeless for a while because I thought the Brexit Party had very clearly defined purpose. Everybody knew what it was about.
Hmm.
It wasn't just about getting Brexit, it was maximising Brexit, it was getting Britain competitive, it was setting up in competition with the EU as opposed to following it. And everybody knew what the Brexit Party stood for. And then when it became Reform, I was very dubious at first because I said, well, what is Reform? What's it about? We know that it's pro-Brexit. We know that it's in favour of the Union and it wants to keep Northern Ireland and all the rest of it. We know all that. But apart from that, what's it about? And I think it took me more than a year to decide that I would actually join Reform. I think it was probably about 2 years. And then it suddenly became something quite different. And particularly after Nigel Farage came back, but
Right.
also before that, we were developing policies under Richard Tice, and we were addressing a whole lot of things. Freedom of speech was a very, very big one. Anti-woke, value for money in government, including, of course, local government. And quite suddenly, we stood for something that was clear and identifiable. And it was at that point that I and several others who had been in the Brexit Party decided, we'd join Reform. Meanwhile, of course, we hadn't seen anything in any of the other parties. I mean, the Tories weren't rallying, nothing was happening. So Reform, I think, began to assume an identity, which it hadn't had initially because nobody quite knew what it was. And then Nigel returned. Of course, Nigel is extremely charismatic. And even when he blunders, people still find him, credible because they know that he's saying what he thinks. And I think now we do offer something very different. And it's down to us we've got to do two things if we want to make any progress at all towards victory in the next election. And the fact we're at the top of the polls now, doesn't actually guarantee success come the election.
Right.
There are two things we've got to do. The first thing we've got to do is to have an identifiable, highly competent, highly articulate team of spokesmen so that people identify a particular issue with a particular spokesman, for example. So that is crucial because people ask me all the time. They ask me in the street. They ask me all the time, have you got the people?
Right.
So we have to demonstrate that we've got the top team. The second thing we've got to do is to, over time, not by Tuesday afternoon, but over time, develop credible, properly costed, well-researched policy on a whole range of issues. There's no good going into the election, and we wouldn't anyway, but it's no good going into the election just talking about post-Brexit. We've got to have a plan for health, a plan for social care, a plan for education. You say it, we've got to have it. So there are a lot of challenges ahead, but we're meeting them, and we're meeting them with the goodwill of the people.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned about having this kind of, I guess the American term is a bench of people, or like a deep bench of folks that can, be leaders in the party. So people's concerns are that it's a one-man band. Do you think that's the case? Is Nigel just steering the ship, or?
No, he's not a one-man band, but as I have said to him a couple of times, I've said, Nigel, your business is winning for us because that's what you're so good at doing, but you need a huge backup behind you of people who can do all the nitty-gritty stuff, which has got to be done. And yes, I think we can put together what you call a bench of people. It's going to be done by degrees. First of all, they'll start noticing 2 or 3 people, then suddenly they'll be noticing 5 or 6 people. It's got to be done by degrees, but within, I reckon, a year, 18 months, we will have the team that is recognisably the next government, or the next cabinet, rather.